Welcome to the Star Chamber. I'm Ryan Swayze, a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel and the founder and president of the Walk the Talk Foundation, a nonprofit that advocates for and advises currently serving and former military service members going through the arduous journey of administrative processes and investigations in our government.
And I am Francescagraham, a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel and the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Advisor for the Walk the Talk Foundation. For all our returning guests, welcome back. And for our new listeners, thank you for tuning in. Before we begin this week's topic, please do not forget to hit that subscribe button, check out our Walk the Talk Foundation website, and hit that donate button if you think we're doing a good job. Also, check out our newsletter, the DoD Times Redacted, on all the socials, including LinkedIn, X, Instagram, and Facebook. Links in the description. All right, Star Chamber listeners, let's get started.
Okay, and welcome back to another mini episode of the Star Chamber. Ryan Swayze here, president and founder of the Walk the Talk Foundation, and I'm going to do a 3-part mini series of mini episodes on what I label as the axis of evil. Now, for everyone who wants to leap to conclusions that I am somehow paralleling our administrative star chambers of justice in the military and Department of Homeland Security to the original axis of evil of Iran, Iraq, and North Korea, please just take a breath through your nose. It's not that dramatic. And if you're not familiar with the original trademarking, if you will, of the axis of evil term, here's a clip from President Bush's 2002 State of the Union address, where he first labeled it.
This is a regime that agreed to international inspections, then kicked out the inspectors. This is a regime that has something to hide from the civilized world. States like these constitute an axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world.
So no, I'm not using axis of evil in terms of murderous regimes or terrorists here. However, it is an axis of evil when it comes to a service member's or uniformed service member's attempt to seek justice and or redress within our government. And I label it the axis of evil because there are 3 organisms working in concert, whether actively or passively, to deny those members' rights to redress, to restitution, to appeal, to due process, and to justice. On one side of the axis, you have the Inspector General and Judge Advocate Corps of the military. Another side is the Board of Correction of Military Records. And then the third facet of the axis of evil is the Freedom of Information Act apparatus and its overseers, the Office of Government Information Services, or OGIS, the self-touted overseer of the military's FOIA entity. And I think the best way to illustrate why this is such an issue and why it's important is to kind of walk through the maturation of most cases we deal with at the foundation. And it starts with a wrongdoing, whether the person be victim or witness, followed by the report of wrongdoing, followed by an administrative investigation that's likely botched, followed by that complainant's lack of rights to appeal, save for one caveat which says, if there's new information or information we did not consider, you can submit that with the subsequent investigation. Well, here's the catch-22 that I'm sure the government knows very well, which is you as a complainant can't ascertain what was considered or not until you have the report of investigation. That report of investigation is not given to you at the conclusion of the investigation. You have to request it. and that request goes via the Freedom of Information Act process, which is glacial at times, and returns back documents that are heavily, and in most cases overly redacted, making it veritably useless for any kind of quasi-appeal one would want to launch. Here are just two examples from the field. Number one, several Freedom of Information Act requests to the Defense Intelligence Agency have been open for over 1,200 days, and not just open, haven't even been looked at for processing after 3+ years. Ridiculous example number two. We were recently working with a client who submitted a FOIA request, and in a brief month, which in FOIA terms is lightning fast, received a one-page memo saying that every single page, every single syllable could not be released. The date, the letterhead, even the fucking clerk who filed the report is somehow withheld under a FOIA exemption. In a previous episode, we talked about the foul and anchor hearings where Senator Ron Johnson famously flips through pages and pages of documents released from the Coast Guard to the panel, and his quote is, "We were promised transparency. This is not transparency." And every page he flips through are huge black blocks of redacted information. Are there exceptions to release of Freedom of Information Act and Privacy Act requests? Absolutely there are. But are those exceptions applied correctly in accordance with the law? Most times not. But you can't prove it because you don't have the original documents. So you'll never know, save for some rare exceptions, what has been redacted and what not. But when you get a one-page memo saying everything is being withheld, well, you can assert well beyond a preponderance of the evidence that it has been overly redacted and illegally withheld. Now let's take our hypothetical, which is not so hypothetical case, one step further. The complainant receives an overly redacted report of investigation years later and wants to challenge that response, wants to appeal it. So they do. The appeal goes to the same place that the FOIA came from, so it's an exercise in ridiculousness in and of itself. But let's say they want to elevate now. Enter the Office of Government Information Systems. Let's take a look at their website and see what OGIS's mission is. And here it is. Clicking over to archives.gov, you can see About OGIS, Mission. As the Federal Freedom of Information Act Ombuds, OGIS resolves FOIA disputes, identifies methods to improve compliance with the statute, and educates our stakeholders about the FOIA process. Reading further, what the OGIS offers, a mediation program. The OGIS offers Freedom of Information Act dispute resolution services to resolve disputes between FOIA requesters and federal agencies. Mediation, a voluntary and collaborative process in which a neutral third party, OGIS, works with disputing parties to discuss the issues and help them find mutually agreeable solutions to their disputes within the confines of the FOIA statute. So, in a not-so-hypothetical, I, as I advised a client, filed a complaint with the OGIS and requested mediation for the Defense Intelligence Agency having slow-rolled or stalled several FOIA requests. Here was OGIS's response. Now, for a matter of context, this comes from an appeal dated April 2022. So the time of this recording, approximately 3.5 years have elapsed. OGIS. We contacted the agency regarding the status of your appeal. DIA FOIA officials informed us that depending on personnel or other organizational changes within the agency, they anticipate responding to your appeal soon. Considering this, and considering that DIA FOIA officials routinely review issues related to search on appeal, we advise you to wait until you receive your final appeal response from DIA. End quote. So the mediators, the overseers of the FOIA entity, their capacity for mediation in this example, after waiting 3.5 years on an appeal from a FOIA over 5 years ago, was to just continue to wait and be patient. Thanks, OGIS. Please don't take this the wrong way when I say I hope you're doged. Segue. Cannot most FOIA functions and Privacy Act release functions be migrated to an artificial intelligence model whereby you take the human veritably out of the loop, you run the documents through AI, perhaps there's a last-minute sanity check with a human, but otherwise, why can't it not be automated? Why can't thousands of FOIA and Privacy Act officials be replaced by computers who would be more accurate, more efficient, and a hell of a lot more timely? A lot of people, I'm sure, are adjusting their thick-rimmed glasses right now and thinking the ways that it couldn't work. But I'll ask you this in retort. Would it be worse than what we have now? For right now, what we have is a broken system. A system that violates the law, the Freedom of Information Act, on a daily basis. And the people who pay the price are those trying to seek redress and justice. And that, my friends, needs to change. Until next time, bye.
Well, that's it for this week's topic. We really appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and check out our foundation website at walkthetalkfoundation.org.
And feel free to reach out and give us feedback. You can get a hold of us via Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and our foundation's website. Details in the description section. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next episode.